Hello, welcome back to the Ultimate Fighting Casual. So, we have a good show this week. We've got McGregor coming this weekend, which we're absolutely buzzing for. And we've just had an absolutely insane weekend of fights. Well, a fight in specific, actually. Because, if we're talking about like betting slips and stuff from last week, it didn't go well. What did you lose it on?
The first fight of the main card. So
and I lost on the second. So literally the money, the bets went literally straight out the window. There was no way of us holding on to that. But it is what it is.
So what a weekend from Max Holloway. Absolutely putting it on Cater. He took his best shots and kept going forward and just proved
dominated him, mate. Absolutely dominated him. Cater is not a pushover when it comes to boxing, right? He's probably one of the top 5 in the UFC 100%. For his boxing. He's genuinely that good, literally across all weight classes. And do you know what? For Holloway to come back in the way he did, and I was a little bit harsh last week on Holloway, saying that it was maybe over his peak or whatever. I was wrong. Hands up. Whoa, hands up. Holloway 2.0 is something different. That is a different man from what we saw versus Volkanovski, 1 and 2. Regardless of who you thought won the second fight, that was a different Holloway on the weekend.
Yeah. I think we saw him really pick up from the second Volkanovski fight. I think looking at it, he realised he needed more output and volume, and we set the record for significant strikes in a fight.
For volume, literally. I mean, that's exactly what he needed to do. And I think that
from the start this time.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. He sort of came out from the block, round 1 and 2. You could tell that was a different Holloway. And then 3, and then 4, and then 4. You know what I mean? It's just a continuous build of absolute class from Holloway. I think that the shit talking stuff was really fun. He really had a point to prove, and I think that worth being mentioned because he really needed to prove this point. And I think he wants the third fight with Volkanovski.
I agree. I think he deserves it as well.
Yeah, he has to be, right. He has 100%. To be. That has to happen.
Well, we've got
Ortega.
Ortega, thank you. Yeah, we've got Ortega coming up, which is March.
Yeah. I think Volkanovski will probably take that from me. If I'm a better man, it will be happening this show. Later down the line, I will be putting my money more towards Volkanovski. Because I do think it's him and Holloway at the top. I do think that. I do think even if like Cater was to get in versus Volkanovski, I still think like Volkanovski is probably like a better fighter. I just do think sometimes like I don't really know what it's called, but where Holloway's like just fought, everyone's sort of like Holloway, and sometimes people do forget.
Bias.
Yeah, recency bias. There you go. People do forget the class of someone like Volkanovski, but I would like to see like Ortega, Cater in there now. It's a great fucking weight class.
Really good. You've got Zabit and Yair Rodriguez as well.
Oh my God,
so we're in for some bangers this year.
Yeah, this could really be up there. 155 this year is a great weight class for sure.
So McGregor this week and a cracking co-main event, which we will get onto, but the fight just before that is Joanne Calderwood versus Jessica Eye, which I think is going to be a really, really good fight. Joanne Calderwood coming off a loss to Jennifer Maia. She didn't need to take that fight, and actually, if she waited, she would have fought for the belt against Shevchenko. So it's a lot for her.
It is, but maybe you could look at that in a sort of other way. Like you said to me before we started filming, realistically, is a fighter that sort of gets in. You know, if she's lined up for a title fight and she fights and loses it, what does it say about her getting for a title fight? Do you think it says a lot? You watch her a bit more than I do. What do you think?
No, I'd agree. I think obviously if you're losing to Jennifer Maia, you're not going to beat Shevchenko.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, exactly what I'm getting at.
There's levels to this, and obviously it was a submission. Now, what Joanne Calderwood's sort of weaknesses are her ground game.
Okay.
And Jessica Eye is a really well-rounded but predominantly wrestling fighter, and you saw that in her last fight really, really well. I can't remember who she was fighting off the top of my head, but in terms of the control, she was never in any danger, and she looked really good.
Yeah.
So it's a big fight for the division, and it really sort of sets out who's going to be fighting for the title in the months to come.
Yeah.
Joanne Calderwood, Scottish, really good striking. This is just the question: has she improved her takedown defence and her ground game that obviously cost her the fight last time?
Well, I can't lie, mate. You've just got me actually buzzing for this fight. And I actually am one of those people, I literally love women's fighting. And I'm so glad it's like a big part of the UFC, because a lot of other sports make it, put it on different weekends, their own cards, their own, and you know what? Having it as involved and the third fight on the main card of Conor McGregor is massive. And as you said, this is a massive opportunity. It's a fight that it's definitely one to watch. I feel this is definitely a one to watch, as Moz said. So make sure to keep your eye out for that one as well. So the co-main for this weekend, for me and for Moz, is basically just as big as the main event. Absolutely. We are so excited for Hooker versus Chandler. It's going to be an absolute scrap. Without getting into predictions yet, I have no idea who's going to win. There's got a lot to say about this one, and it's going to be a belter, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You look at both sides. We know a lot about Hooker, but in terms of Chandler, he's got wins over the likes of Eddie Alvarez and Benson Henderson. So really good established UFC names, former champions in both of them.
Yeah.
Obviously got them at the end of their career. Bellator, obviously doesn't have the money or necessarily the competition to attract the level of competition in the UFC.
Sure.
But that being said, Chandler is absolutely no joke.
Yeah,
His
exactly. Yeah. Taking it for like what it is, almost like I know you have all these like ifs and buts about Bellator, and I completely agree about them. But it's taking it for almost what it is. What we have seen of Chandler is what you've got to rate him off of,
Absolutely.
right? And that's fucking quality. What you've seen of him right there. And for someone like Dan Hooker to take such a fight, or even for Chandler to come into the UFC and to take this fight. For no matter who you look at this, it's a massive deal. It's a massive deal. But where do you think this fight's actually going to end up? Like that's what I'm questioning. Will this go to the ground?
Chandler's wrestling, it is really, really good.
Yes.
His explosive, like traditional American NCAA wrestling, is what gets talked about quite a lot. He is fantastic at it. You see it in his fights and his control. Dan Hooker, obviously training with City Kickboxing in Australia. Got the likes of Volkanovski and Adesanya as training partners. Their takedown defense speak for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. So, that's what I was about to say. When you're training with Adesanya, takedown defense, and you're looking at something like it just looks like a perfect recipe. So Adesanya comes to you, you're gonna fucking get everything you can off of him. How do you not let this guy take you to the floor, right? Because no matter how good you think your own wrestling is, I do think with these champions sometimes, or these elite level fighters, is it in the back of their head that potentially the other fighter might be better than them at some things? Do you know what I mean? It must be, right?
Absolutely, and skill set is definitely something that they've got to compare and contrast and analyse.
Absolutely.
If you look at things, Dan Hooker's weapons, I think his knee is going to be massive. That knee has knocked out many a fighter. And a big power double leg. If you're changing levels on Dan Hooker, you better be pretty sure and pretty careful.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the main event this week is McGregor versus Dustin Poirier, an absolute scrap.
Yeah, mate, I am so excited to see McGregor back in the ring. I'm so pissed off that over the last 2 years you've seen him in the octagon once.
Yeah,
the Khabib fight once, and whatever it is, it's once in 2 years. That's shit. It's not good enough. 2020 we should have seen McGregor in the ring at least twice. It should have been hopefully 3 times. You know what I mean? And now we're getting him again. Dana's come out and said he's going to fight loads this year. Khabib's come out and said that if something happens this weekend, obviously there's 2 fights on at 155, right? If something happens this weekend, he could be tempted. Yeah. If you're asking me, what he's saying there is, Conor, Dustin is a formidable opponent. If you can go and prove to me that you can beat him, and you beat him proper, and you beat him well, I'll come back and fight you. Because let's face it, that's the money fight. That's the fight that everyone wants. That's the fight that Khabib wants. And that's the fight that Conor wants. All the others are great, and they all have their own reasons for being in that fight. But truthfully, for me, that is Khabib speaking to McGregor there. And I think that McGregor really will put on a show here. If you've been following his Instagram for last year, all he's been putting on is family photos, fighting photos, him in the gym, working hard. And I think he's really focused. Dana's come out and said that. He seems not like a kid anymore. The way he speaks to him negotiations-wise, all that sort of stuff just seems like a lot more rounded. I've always had confidence in McGregor, but I have real confidence in this fight. And Dustin's no pushover.
No. So I absolutely agree. Dustin is no pushover, and it's really going to test McGregor. I do see a key to victory for him if he's able to wrestle and tie McGregor out.
Absolutely.
But McGregor looks so good. That being said, Poirier has been such an upward trajectory of improvement since their last fight. Yeah. I can't see the 60 seconds that is being talked about being realistic.
Yeah,
I can see this going sort of 3-4 rounds, if not a decision. But I think we could be in for a scrap.
A McGregor decision would be really... seeing McGregor go to a decision would be really interesting. I don't think this is a fight that can make it to decision. And I also don't think this is a fight that's going to be over in 60 seconds. I have so many friends putting money on first round. Genuinely first round. People even saying second round. I think even second round is... Dustin's being a little bit pushed to the side here. I'm not sure if I'm a fan of that, because you know what? Dustin is deservedly in his spot. And this almost... when you saw Cerrone fight him last year, you sort of thought... Cerrone's almost deserved this, and it's sort of easier for McGregor, and you could see why they gave that fight. This is not the same situation 12 months later. This is not. Poirier is not one to push over. As we just mentioned before we started filming this, that loss on his thing against on his record against Khabib, that's just expected for everyone, so it doesn't really matter. No. Since he lost to McGregor, like you said, he went out to 155, and it's literally been like this ever since.
Let's not forget he's got a win over Gaethje as well at 155 before the Khabib fight. Yeah. So it's not as easy or as clear cut as I think people are making out. So
who do we actually think is going to win this fight? For me, this is McGregor. This is not an easy McGregor fight. This isn't a 60 second, 1 minute, or 1 round or something like that. It's nothing like that. I think this is a formidable opponent for McGregor, as I've mentioned. So I do think that this is going to go at least 3 rounds. At least 3 rounds are going to be here. We'll get into the third. The third and the fourth is where I see it getting really cagey, and it's where I do think McGregor's almost endurance and knockout power and knockout potential, should I say, will actually factor in. So for me, me, this is going to be a McGregor KO in the 3rd round. That's what I'm going to go for, because I'm going to go predict a little bit deeper because of the big fight. What about you?
Absolutely. Well, I am going to say a McGregor decision, simply because I think Dustin is too durable to be put away. I could be wrong. Obviously, we'll find out. But I think he's really going to be tested. I think in terms of Dustin, striking-wise, he's the champion of this division. He beat Gaethje, and this is the biggest test other than Khabib or Oliveira for McGregor in terms of a striking battle for me. I do think he'll get it done, and if he wants to be the champion that he says he's going to be, he's going to have to beat Dustin in a decision and prove his gas tank over 5 for me.
Absolutely. Okay, so for the co-main, I think Chandler's going to win this. I think that Chandler on the floor, if it goes there, it's his. It's all his. I think that's where he's going to thrive and do better. But if he can get there or not, or how he will get there, again, it's fighting predictions, right? This is all just guesswork at the end of the day. I think if it goes to the floor, Chandler takes it.
I think that's fair. It's a 3-round fight, so gas tanks aren't going to be as sort of
important,
influential as they may be. Yeah. I think that Hooker is going to get it done. I see him knocking him out in the 1st or the 2nd with a knee. I'm going to get that specific.
I like it.
Chandler's going to go in for a power double and just eat that knee that has knocked so many people
If that comes in, I'll do a shot of vodka on the next show.
There we go.
There you go. That's how confident I am in that not coming in.
Well, there we go. So the 3rd fight we talked about in the video, Joanne Calderwood versus Jessica I think Joanne will show improvements from her last fight in terms of staying on her feet and letting her striking do the talking, which is nasty. So yeah, I've got her winning by knockout or decision.
Me too. I completely agree with that, and I'm not gonna pretend that I'm some sort of analyst expert, because I don't watch much of women's fighting, as I said, especially like these two. I haven't seen them all that much, but from what Morris has told me, from what I've seen, blah blah blah, I agree with you, mate. I think it's gonna be a knockout. Fuck it, it's gonna be a knockout. There we go. That's my bet.
It wouldn't surprise me on a McGregor card. There's going to be a lot of eyes on it, and they're going to want to put on a show. So
absolutely, knockouts all over the place.
100%. The rest of our bets are now coming up on the screen, so we'll see how they do next week. But
until then, thank you very much for watching. Next week we'll go over our bets. Hopefully we got a McGregor knockout in round 3, and hopefully for Moz's sake, I know he's a big Dan Hooker fan, so hopefully he gets his win as well. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, all that shit. Anything from you, Moz?
Follow the Insta, keep up with it.
Yeah, down below. Thank you very much. Sweet. Yes.